Have nothing but fear, especially if you're a successful gaming company, because Sweetbaby Inc. is here to destroy your game. And that's what people are speculating with the most recent successful title coming out of France, Clair Obscur Expedition 33. If you haven't heard about this game, you're probably going to hear about it even more often because it's one of the most dominant releases of the year. People are saying this is game of the year, and beyond that, it's revolutionizing the turn-based combat style that we've always known as a JRPG style that has been loved by dedicated fans and gamers, but it's something new to the gaming journalists out there where they're finally coming around to it because it's not made by Japanese developers. And now that the journalists that usually don't know anything about games are noticing a genre, they're gonna try to take it over if they haven't already. We saw the implications of Final Fantasy VII and Sweetbaby Inc.'s involvement in the changing of some of the background characters, but now this is a French studio doing something that was amazing with just 33 developers and an indie outfit that was grabbing people from Reddit and SoundCloud to produce a quality product. And with that massive success and accolades at its belt, the powerful hands in politics and entertainment are noticing, and they're probably going to want to control this title, this IP, and this franchise. And this is where I'm kind of hesitant with this game, where you're having the president of France cheering on this game, giving it a glowing recommendation, where you would usually think, okay, that's the president supporting a studio that was developed in France by French developers, a company that was built in France. That makes sense. It's just supporting French companies. But if you're being supported by Emmanuel Macron, the president, one of the most progressive and liberal governments on the planet Earth, then you're going to have a problem. You're spelling doom for a franchise because this has become a political entity now, something that represents France. And if you're representing France, you're going to have to represent modern France. And modern France, although Paris may be a dumpster fire due to other circumstances, it has a culture that it wants to push out. And you have the best example of that with the 2024 Olympics. We all saw the legendary image. We saw the assortments of DEI elements when it comes to racial gender politics on display. And I think that is the thing that is representative of current France culture. And if you get a notice from the president of France that recommended and cheered on this display at the Olympics, you're probably going to be pushed in that direction. And that's why I say Sweetbaby Inc. is closer than you think, because they're connected to France. Specifically, the CEO, Kim Belair, who started out at Ubisoft, working with direct executives that are from France. This is a person that is well connected with Ubisoft, well connected with some ex-developers, well connected with the gaming journalists, giving this game glowing reviews. And I think this is the situation that we're going to see with this game over time, where it's going to steadily be influenced by these outside factors. And I think people are going to say, well, who cares? What matters? The game is unique on its own. It's not going to change. Even if they have DLC, it's not going to add any sort of modern day political outcomes and gender or racial issues. I say you're going to have to be wary, because if you have the full weight of the government supporting you after this, they probably got government funding for all we know, because they do support the arts and entertainment in France. The developers here may have to crumble under pressure and support of the government itself. And that's where I have my suspicions about this game, because this game, regardless of anything we say, it's a great game. At least me, I love the game. I like the story. I like the concepts. I like everything about this game, the gameplay itself. But I'm suspicious about the future of this game. How long can this uniqueness and creativity last under the thumb of a heavy-handed government like in France and the European Union? Because the parameters, the regulations, everything that is around the taxation, everything that is surrounding this development space of this game is negative to the overall outcome that we would want to see from a quality developer. And that's why I say Sweetbaby Inc. is just earshot away from influencing the entirety of the development team for this game. And I don't see how you can go about not thinking that is a possibility. If you don't believe me, let's just look at the history and influences of Sweetbaby Inc. throughout American culture these past few years. We saw what they did to Spider-Man. They hijacked a brilliant Spider-Man franchise with Spider-Man 1 and injected every one of their concepts when it comes to diversity, equity, inclusion into that game, where you barely played as Peter Parker for the majority of the game. I think that is the thing that we consistently see throughout the video gaming world right now, where we have these outside actors come in and influence and change the overall makeup of the game. We saw this happen with Alan Wake 2, where you barely play as Alan Wake in his own title game. And we saw a diversity swapped character as the lead character. And I think this is a similar situation we kind of saw with Spider-Man 2, where it really wasn't about Peter Parker. It was about everyone else around him and him giving up his role as Spider-Man so someone else can take on his role in Spider-Man 3 so he can be even more of an afterthought. And I think this is a situation we often see in the gaming industry when it comes to these consultancy firms, where they hijack the titles that you've been producing for years, especially established franchises. And I think that's what we can say about Clair Obscur. It's an established franchise. It has made its mark. There's going to be sequels. There's going to be DLCs. There's going to be a lot more happening with this world. We already see there's a movie rights already purchased. They're developing it, probably with the backing from France itself, because they support different projects. They fund these type of projects. So you have the president of France supporting you. You have government funding probably coming out and supporting the development of your game. There's going to be influence there. And I think that is a situation I fear that we're going to see develop with this game. Of course, this is pure speculation, and that may not be the case, but there are other factors here that may lead to this game becoming one of those games that have been influenced by Sweetbaby Inc. You can just go back to the journalists talking about these games. These are not gamers. These are people that are political activists that are here that couldn't get a job talking about politics. And they're bringing their activism to the video gaming space. They have never played JRPGs. They barely know anything about this game. They didn't even probably complete this game. They probably watched the cinematics and liked the story. But now they want to bear their influence in the property themselves. And we see this often with a lot of titles that come out, where they're easily influenced by the articles and the award shows that want them to be in line with their modern day political thinking. We see this happening with so much properties where there's heavy influence on the modern market, on fighting games, on outfits of characters, to be in line with the modern day racial, gender, political idealism that they want to see influence and espouse from all these video game developers. And I think that's the situation we saw with Black Myth Wukong. I always bring up this allegations, but it seems very real, where Black Myth Wukong developers Game Science were almost blackmailed for $7 million, allegedly, from Sweetbaby Inc. for consultancy fees. If they refused to get the consultancy fees, it was said that they would destroy their game through journalistic means, through hit pieces and articles from The Gamer, Kotaku, all the lead gaming websites. And that's exactly what happened. We saw over 7 to 8 months of hit pieces on this game. Even after it was a wild success, they kept releasing hit pieces on this game. And I think that's reflective of what we saw with Kingdom Come 1. The game was heavily criticized by the gaming journalists, and overall the developer themselves cracked under pressure and made his main character LGBTQ representative just to please the gaming journalists. He says this outrightly in interviews, that he just felt too much pressure, he was scared, and he listened to the journalists and made his main character LGBTQ representative. And I think that is a situation that we see with a lot of developers. They crack under the pressure of the gaming journalists, and they stop listening to the fans, and they try to produce something for the gaming journalist, the person that is not even there to play your video game. And I think that's ultimately what we see in the gaming industry, this heavy influence, this heavy hand of the gaming journalists, the consultancy firms, and now the government. And I think a combination of all of these things are probably going to bring down this overall game. And that's what I'm fearful of, that this game is just going to fall apart in the ways that we saw happen with Kingdom Come, that we saw with Spider-Man 2, and for the most part, we've seen with most titles that have been influenced by other consultancy firms that have destroyed titles like Starfield, like Last of Us, and so much other great gaming franchises that just don't really have the opportunity to exist anymore because they were manhandled and destroyed by these outside influences. But that is just Sweetbaby Inc.'s modus operandi, to subvert expectations, to subvert ideals, and try to penetrate the minds of the gamers. And I think that's why they will see Clair Obscur as the opportune candidate to be consumed with their own ideology. And I think that's what we see with their statements. That is their main goal in the gaming industry, and that's what we've seen them done all throughout their tenure within the gaming culture. But hopefully that's not the case. Hopefully the developers of Clair Obscur avoid this. They're having great successes, selling over 2 million copies, outperforming Assassin's Creed Shadows. That is just reflective of the skills and talents of the developers, and maybe they'll keep true to their idealism of what gaming is, because the developer themselves said They only made this game because they were bored, and hopefully they keep that ideal and philosophy where they're making games to be fun and not to be cultural representatives of a political ideology. And I think that is the thing we can hope for gamers, and I think what the developer has is their mindset currently is what gamers actually want to see. But that's just my thoughts on the situation. Maybe you disagree with me. I'd like to hear your thoughts. Like, comment, share, subscribe. This is Wagner Knows Why. Catch you next time.